Previously, my topic is the conflict and compromise of the Black 14 in 1969. My thesis is the conflict between the Black 14 and Coach Eden was a catalyst that gave athletes an equal voice in the Wyoming University community. This led to the transformation of the Mormon Church. Good morning. First, I would like to thank Wyoming University and Nimitz High School for allowing me to speak to the football team today. My name is Mel Hamilton. I am a former Wyoming University football player. With all that is going on in the athletic community involving politics, such as the Take a Knee incident, I would like to speak to you and tell you my story to encourage you to stay strong and become active. History has repeated itself from over 50 years ago because athletes are still being ridiculed for expressing and for fighting for what they believe in. In 1969, me and 13 other African American football players were protesting against the Mormon policy because they didn't allow African Americans to become priests. And as a result of that, we got kicked off the team by Coach Eden. Later on, we adopted the name the Black 14. During the late 1960s, there were many young adult protesters. This happened because they were being developed and it was a part of a student protest movement. Because due to the death of Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights leader, and the death of John F. Kennedy, it aroused a movement of action. And it's to no surprise that the Black 14 would advocate for the civil rights movement, and they would also be a part of the Black Student Alliance. A few days prior to our home game in 1969 against Brigham Young University, which was ran by a Mormon church, all Black Student Alliance members were asked to wear black armbands to the following game, including us, the football players. So on October 17th, a day before our game, we wore the black armbands and we asked Coach Eden if we could be a part of the protest. Not only did he say no, but he kicked us off the team and insulted us, saying we should go to a predominantly black school like Grambling University or Morgan State. We, of course, fought back. We took Eden to court, and we had many supporters, but we also had many people who were against us. But we went to court, and we lost. But the compromise was for us to keep our scholarships, but we couldn't be a part of the football team. And that might sound reasonable, but we had no justice. We thought there was no justice in that compromise. We felt that we had been racially discriminated against. We felt that athletes should have a voice and be able to participate in demonstrations and protest. And most importantly, we wanted to let them know what we thought about the Mormon religion. Like I said before, we had many supporters, and many of them were part of newspapers and magazine articles. So we did many interviews, and the public really knew about us because we were talking about one of the best Western American football coaches in 1969, Coach Eden, due to our undefeated record. Like I said, there was a lot of tension towards Wyoming University. There was even more attention when students of all races started protesting because they wanted us back on the team and they wanted Eden fired. We had professors who quit their jobs because of what was going on campus. There was even football season ticket holders who threatened to not come back because of the issue. I knew that we were starting an amazing movement in Wyoming University, in the community, and on campus. Because eventually, it led to San Jose State. They had a game against Wyoming University, a game following our court case, and they wore multicolored armbands to support us. All these amazing things that happened is what we call the compromise. Because eventually, Wyoming University allowed all athletes an equal voice, just like a common student. And not even 10 years later, in 1978, the Mormon religion changed their policy and allowed all African Americans to become priests. And there was also a committee of 14 made in our name to make sure there was equality on campus. I say all this to tell you that because you are a part of a football team, not even just football, but you're an athlete and you're in high school, people are going to be watching you and listening to what you have to say. Even when our coach was against us, we had fans who supported us and encouraged us to speak on what we thought was right, regardless to if they even believed in the same things as us. And I think that's amazing. And I think that because you have a voice, you should voice your opinion whenever you can, especially when you think something is being done that is wrong and there should be correction. And ironically today, because of people like me and the other 13 members, my son is a Mormon and he can become a priest if he would like to, and I am very proud that I created a movement, not just me, but the Black 14 itself created a movement to ensure that. But as I was saying from before, you have a voice, and you're an athlete, and no one can take away your freedom of speech unless you allow them. Thank you. And as the next speaker approaches, I ask that you think about what could you voice your opinion about that could possibly change the world or even your community. Thank you. Hello, my name is Colin Kaepernick. I am a former NFL player for the 49ers. I was a quarterback. In 2016, I sat down during the national anthem, not to disrespect America, not to disrespect the military, but in protest of racial discrimination. I have great respect for men and women who have died for this country, who are still fighting for this country, fighting for all citizens to have freedom, to have liberty, and to have equal rights. And I don't think the country is, I don't think that they're even trying to ensure that that happens. They're not holding up their end of the bargain. And I actually talked to Nate Boyer, who is a Green Beret, and he told me that a way to respect America and the military and to also continue my protest, I should take a knee, because in the military, you take a knee for a fallen brother. So I did just that. I am not going to show pride in a country that oppresses Black people. This is bigger than football. People are dying in the streets. People are getting paid leave and getting away with murder. So I knew that during the football game, I was going to stand out. And people were going to want to know why I was sitting down and why I was taking a knee, and that's exactly what I wanted them to do. I say all this to tell you that those are my reasons, and I did that because that's what I believed in. So I know that there's a taking a knee trend going around because of me, but regardless if you choose to do that or not, the choice is yours. You get to choose how you use your rights. And don't let anyone around you affect that. Even the fans or anybody who tries to talk to you, don't let that affect what you believe in and how you voice your opinion. Because it seems to me that we have freedom of speech, but every time we use our platform, we get bashed for it. For instance, I'm not a part of a football team right now in the NFL because I took a knee or I sat down during the national anthem. But I'm not going to let that affect what I do with my life or my protests, because I have started the foundation, Kaepernick 7, to fix the problems that I'm fighting against. I go around talking to different groups of young people, different high schools, football teams, just like you, to encourage them to speak on what they feel is right, and also how to talk to the police and how to just stay active in their community. Because, as Mr. Hamilton said before, people have put their careers on the line so that all athletes of all races, and so all people of any type of color, shape, or shade can have equality. Because in 1969, the Black 14 stood up for what they thought was right. And in 2016, I took a knee against racial discrimination. But the question is, what are you going to do today? Thank you.
wondering, since you had the ability to, through your research, see what actually happened in 1969 with the court case and the things that were going on, what was the biggest thing you learned from this primary research sources?
From the biggest thing I learned is that from looking at secondary sources or a whole summary of it, it seems as though they didn't really have a lot of people supporting them, like the community was against them. But when you actually look at like interviews they've had even today, and from even back then, you get to understand that they had a lot of people, especially young people, who were supporting them and who were basically a part of the movement. They were protesting more than the Black 14 was. And I thought that was really amazing to get that kind of undercover story.
At Wyoming, what was the ratio, not black and white, but Mormon, non-Mormon? Do you have any idea?
Actually, I do not, but I actually do know that one of the Black 14, I forgot his name, like on the tip of my tongue, he was actually a Mormon. But it wasn't really that, like, it doesn't, if I'm pretty sure if that was a like major like issue or component in the protest, it would have like been said more often. But I don't think, even if there were any, I don't think they would have like actually spoke about it because of what was going on.
Yeah, that seems to me to be an interesting point for some further research. And I'm really not familiar with Wyoming, and I was also wondering what was the ratio on the team of black and white players.
There were actually only 14 African American players, and you know a football team is huge, so there wasn't that many at all.
I've never actually heard this story, to be honest with you. It's nice to see something new. Where did you get the interest in this story itself?
Well, actually, prior to finding out about that, I was going to do like the Alamo and all that, but I was looking up the topic, the theme for this year, and that came up, and I saw a documentary on it, and I was very interested in it, and I wanted to know more about it because I thought it was very, because I had never heard about it, and that's coming from a coach's daughter, and he watches SportsCenter all the time, so I thought it was pretty interesting. I knew something my dad didn't know.
As you were researching this and learning more and more about it and more about just the context of the time in which it was taking place, did other things pop up at you that made you think, wow, I want to research that topic deeper, I want to research that topic deeper?
Yes, because I found out that during this like student protest movement, there were actually different other groups of African American football players who were kind of doing the same thing, and there was also the Olympics when they raised the Black Power sign, and I wish I kind of would have knew about that before then, because I would have changed it, because I think that's really powerful to do at the Olympics. I mean, that was a big statement. So I like that.
I mean, 69 was an era of protest for a lot of things. This would have been probably one of the lesser known stories that was going on at the time. But a great topic.
Thank you.
I wonder if Wyoming, because it, especially at that time, was more isolated than other areas, kept this from being an upfront story, because like Bob, this is the first time I've heard of this, and believe me, I read a lot.
They actually tried to, they were very stubborn during this time, especially the athletic director and the president of Wyoming University, because even when those football season ticket holders and many people were quitting their jobs, they were like, well, this is going to go over, this is going to be, these 14 African American men aren't going to make that much of a statement, but they actually did, because it was the student protest movement, so it was a part of that type of era.
Were they given the option not to wear the bands?
No, he just immediately kicked them off the team, and I thought that was kind of like, wow. And when they went to court, that wasn't even that was the reason why they were kicked off the team, because they were wearing the armbands. If they weren't wearing them and they were asking to do it, it would have been different. And I also found out that Coach Eden actually knew about the protests before they even talked to them about it.
How long did the court process drag out? Was it fairly rapid?
Yeah, it was really quick because they really had no chance of winning, because during that time period, no one really cared for that type of small issue. And they had a lot going on during that time, and they thought that this was just going to be like a little incident that happened, and people aren't going to do this again. People aren't going to rise up, but the opposite happened.
What do you think that this story from 1969 has to say as a message for young people of today?
That just because you're young or you're in college or you're an athlete, don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. Like, I know a lot of people are part of the take a knee stance, and I think that they would be very encouraging of that, because you don't see a lot of young people try to do things like that back during that time. Like, that area itself was the student protest movement, because that had never really happened before. So just don't underestimate yourself and the power that you have as an athlete and as a citizen in America.
Well said.
Well, you have anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the topic.